I can't remember. I might have touched on the numbers during the last call, but it's probably worth highlighting again, right? Pretty impressive in the 4 metrics that we track in that bi-weekly update. We've got, in terms of annualized growth at least, rETH up 410%, mini pools up 354%, RPL staked is up 420%, that's pretty nice, and then node operators up 139%, and certainly by the looks of the events channel, that's only continuing, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think that'll kind of come into this this period as well. Well, that's looking like another good period as well. But yeah, that's fantastic growth for that period of time. And it's all metrics as well, which is nice. Particularly like we're getting new node operators. Those node operators are spinning up more mini pools. We're building up that rETH supply. So yeah, it's all fantastic.
And then there were a couple of milestones that we don't track, but were equally as impressive. I think it was ETH staked. Was it ETH staked over 250k? And then there was some other metric that was pretty high. I think every number is up right now, so it's certainly good to see. And then Smartnode, we've got 1.6.4 out. So in the bi-weekly, mentioned that it was a relatively high priority update, and that one of the features worth noting was the support for 2 new MEV boost relays, Block Native and Eden Network. So certainly a lot of work going on to churn out these Smartnode updates. I think the previous bi-weekly there were 3 from memory.
Yeah, and I think so we're looking at including Manifold as well, which is one of the other relays. I think we just need to find out a little bit more about their relay, what the type of relay is and that sort of thing. And we wanted to have a chat to them about the data transparency API and some other stuff around the fee distributor, kind of overwriting the fee distributor. So those sorts of plans. So we're trying to lock in something with them in terms of discussing them. I know they've put a post up on the DAO forum, so I've roughly read that. But I think we just need to have a touch base with them before we integrate them.
Yeah, good stuff. It's giving more options, which is great, right? And there's already quite a few there, but obviously we want to provide as many as possible, so that people can choose what is most appropriate. And then for the other development news, obviously Atlas is on everyone's mind. Pretty key protocol upgrade. And there was a bit of discussion in obviously Discord, but in the DAO governance forum as well. I think it was probably around 2 weeks ago now, Langers, that you must have put out that notification calling for kind of commentary. There is a link in the bi-weekly documents under governance for feedback on Atlas. What should be prioritized. Obviously we want everything, we want it now, but realistically there needs to be a decision on what is the most important features to add into Atlas.
Yeah, one of the things that's kind of tripping us up at the moment as well is we're kind of getting information. So we're trying to clarify this information, but the Ethereum core devs are kind of probably a bit more bullish on their timelines than we expected. So they may well be having withdrawals out sooner. So that's something that we're kind of having to adjust to in terms of Atlas, because originally Atlas didn't include withdrawals. So it didn't include withdrawals and it didn't include solo migration. So if they are looking like they will release withdrawals earlier, it means that we need to move those forward. So that's definitely something that we're paying close attention to. And Kane and I have actually spent the last kind of week looking at withdrawals and making sure that we're all set in terms of where the spec is developing and what we need to do to meet that. Kane's also been working on like the solo migration stuff and figuring out what we need to do in terms of that as well. He's already been working on. I should let Kane talk. I'll let Kane dip in.
I mean, you're covering it pretty well. Yeah.
So go on.
I mean, there's a lot of things that we're currently looking at and juggling. Lang has said it pretty well that we're kind of waiting for a little bit more certainty to come out of the ETH core devs in terms of timelines on withdrawals and also things like the beacon state route in the EVM. Whether that's going to make it in as well, because that'll drastically change the way that we handle withdrawals. We designed the current system in a way that the ODAO submits a message to the chain if a mini pool becomes exited, so it marks it as withdrawn on the mini pool. However, if the beacon state route is made available to the EVM, we can skip that entirely, and the node operator will just submit a proof against the state route that proves that their validator is in a exited state, and then we don't have to rely on the ODAO for that process, which would be really cool. Just takes another duty away from the ODAO, which is desirable.
Yeah, and I should say that if the spec is progressing, if the spec continues to progress, and when I mean the spec, I mean if the Ethereum spec progresses as it's going at the moment, it's going to simplify Rocket Pool a lot. I mean, in terms of the withdrawals. So we actually Kane and I actually got quite excited when we started looking through it because there is a possibility that we're going to end up tidying up Rocket Pool really well, kind of with the withdrawal stuff. So even like partial withdrawals, for example, are actually quite easy to implement. Partial and having like a difference between partial and full withdrawals is really easy. So it works. It could work out really well. As Kane mentioned, one aspect that would simplify things a lot is having that beacon state route in the EVM. And so I've posted some stuff on the Shanghai candidate thread to make sure that it's front of mind when they're talking about scope. I've also posted about 0x01 withdrawal initiated exits as well, to try and get that in front of people as well. And I'm also working with Lido actually we're putting together what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be moving forward with getting 0x01 initiated exits pushed through as well. So they've got some ideas about how some of the problems that the core devs have raised with the current solution that they've got. So we're just kind of working through what that, whether we can refine that, get it into an EIP, and I guess put some weight behind getting it through.
There is one small technical caveat with the beacon state route in EVM, and I've posted a post on the discussion thread, bringing up the issue that I see, which is that to produce a proof for the beacon state, you need to know the structure of the beacon state object, and what we've seen even already is that that object can change over time. In Capella, they're adding 2 new fields to that object, so if that's the case, then you kind of need a way to the proof verification logic has to be mutable, and that is quite undesirable for a number of applications, specifically ours, where we don't want to have the ODAO responsible for updating the proof verification logic on the EVM every time the sort of structure of that data changes, because giving them that power would also give them the power to break the system, so they could upgrade that logic to always return false, and then that would lock all of the deposits in the mini pool. So there's got to be some method to verify those proofs on the EVM that is forwards compatible with all future unknown changes to the consensus specs. So that's sort of a problem I'm exploring at the moment, and I've posted a post hoping to get a response from the people who are working on this EIP to see what their thoughts are on that matter. One of our ideas that Langers and I came up with would be to have a pre-compile on the EVM, which would be able to be upgraded alongside any consensus spec changes. Instead of implementing your own proof verification logic on the EVM, you would rely on sort of a pre-compile that knew about the state. But I don't know how viable or desirable that option is, whether there's better ideas out there as well.
Yeah, like the limitation that we're seeing, it can't be a limitation. I can't see them building it with that limitation in. So I would imagine that we're either missing something, or they will do something like the pre-compile that we mentioned. But yeah, we just need to kind of get that information out of them, and try and get it, so the EIP is EIP 4788, and we're trying to make sure that we get that prioritized. There's definitely some support, or vague support. So Alex Stokes, who's one of the EF researchers, he's very keen to get that into Shanghai, because he sees quite a lot of benefit in it. And as a very, very small thing, but when I posted about the fact that Rocket Pool supports this being in Shanghai, and we would really like it in Shanghai, Danny liked that reply. So take that how you want, but hopefully we get that in there.
Well, there's certainly a lot of work going on there, but at the same time, it sounds like the Rocket Pool devs are almost helping to keep ETH staking together in general, right? Like, there's been a lot of work put in terms of supporting client code, right? Troubleshooting, really going above and beyond in that area. So not only working on improving the Rocket Pool protocol, but helping out some of our partners as well.
Yeah, and I think Joe has done an amazing job working with the client teams in quite challenging. It's quite challenging, really, and he's done an amazing job. I think he needs to take a step back from it, because I think he's getting a bit burnt out. But he's doing an amazing job working with the client teams to resolve those issues, diagnose those issues, and that sort of thing. It's unfortunate some of them have had some issues coming through the merge, but over time they'll kind of get stronger and stronger, hopefully.
He missed out on a proposal today, so he's doing it at his own financial damage, supporting client diversity. So he's putting his body and his money on the line to support client diversity, and it's admirable.
We salute him.
What was that, sorry?
We salute him.
We salute him.
Indeed.
Howdy.
Hey, I saw you come along, Jasper. How's it going?
Going well. Sorry, I wanted to be here earlier, but I'm here now.
That's all good. We appreciate that it's not the usual time for you to help host these calls, but if you're in a position to, more than happy to let you take over. We're just running through what's kind of left over from the Biweekly. We got about halfway through the R&D section. I guess the next topic would be talking about the APRs, which have not only been updated, but further increased since that post, right? Was it 6% I saw on rETH now? Pretty good.
Yeah, the APRs had a pretty interesting journey, just to give a little bit of background. So APRs pre-merge obviously were substantially lower. I think the page showed that around 4%. And then we had the post-merge period where it was improperly displayed. Then we corrected back, but then there was a few glitches, right? Certain balances who were not properly accounted for, and I don't remember exactly what kind of pools, but those were then later added back, and then we had the wild day with what seemed like a 12% daily APR. However, it was just a correction of that bug. So the APR has been a bit all over the place, but it is getting towards a correct amount over time. And as you mentioned, it is increasing because of our fairly high MEV participation rate. And there was Marceau posted a good breakdown. It was linked to a good breakdown showing how I think Stakewise was at the top with like near over 99% or something MEV participation, but Rocket Pool has slowly been creeping up, and for the smoothing pool, I mean.
Just opening Rocket Scan.
We also hit 100 ETH in rewards, right, in this distribution?
No, we were like 2 ETH short.
That's tragic.
I know.
But still, it came out to be, what, a 0.02 ETH per node, or per mini pool?
Yeah, something like that.
It was interesting. It was a bit of a side note, but while I was away today, the place I was, one of the individuals there happened to be new to Ethereum staking, and I gave him the whole rundown on Rockpool. And never have I met someone who picked it up so quickly. So hopefully in the next week or two, we might have a new face in the Discord.
Awesome. I have to say, perhaps I don't do quite as good a job of explaining it as you do, but the odd time I've talked to people who are, fairly well versed in the industry about liquid staking, it tends to just go over their heads. So, yeah. Yeah,
it's such a tiered system where there's layers to it. Which is, it's funny about that is just a testament towards the Rockpool design is Ethereum, the protocol is designed with layers to it, and I think Rockpool itself is now being designed with layers to it. Symbiotic relationship. So this next topic on the R&D generated a little bit of discussion, and this is a bug that affected a few of the major nodes that were not in the smoothing pool. And essentially, the fix was to not participate in collecting fees, distributing priority fees, right?
And then the other part to it is we're also just waiting for Sigma Prime to come back with the audit of the fix as well. They're having a look at it for us. So once we can confirm the fix was correct on Grelly and the Sigma Prime come back with their audit to give it a thumbs up, we'll then start executing that fix on mainnet, which will take about 2 weeks to do because we need to wait for the proposal timeouts to execute them. So it's still another 2 weeks or so before that'll be fully resolved. But that's in progress.
That's a pretty awesome turnaround time with Sigma Prime Club. They're able to help you guys out with the audits quickly.
Yeah, we're on really good terms with them. We have a really good relationship with them, so they we're very accommodating, and that's awesome.
Yeah, they are amazing. Really, really good.
So just need one more vote on the hotfix proposal, I guess.
Cool, awesome, thanks for that. I'll chase that.
That's great to hear. So moving on then to governance stuff. This may have already been discussed, I'm not sure, but Valdor, very well deservedly, is now a rocket scientist. You may know Valdor from governance discussions to helping people out in general and support and trading, to contributing feedback whenever it's requested, to also stepping up and really taking charge of accounting and some of the fine details in our nascent governance structure. So definitely well deserved for Valdorf. So in terms of PDAO and IMC things, we have put out the initial budget for the next round of incentives, and this is available thanks to, once again, Valdorf's very gracious accounting. You can see that differences are minor from the previous period. However, it is worth noting, I believe in this budget, that we begin the 3,000 RPL sort of that we are taking from the existing treasury that was allocated to the IMC from previous periods. So essentially, we are using 3,000 in excess of the period's inflation from reserves. And this is expected to extend until approximately when withdrawals are live, at which point the cost of liquidity for RE, in theory, should plummet. If you want to read more, of course, the budget is on the DAO forum, and in this week prior to the budget being finalized, you can request a vote if there is something that you think is erroneous or faulty or bad for the protocol. I've also uploaded a treasury statement that sort of just goes over how the flow of inflation is going from a higher level.
I think we've touched on, have we? We've touched on a few of these other governance topics, especially the Atlas protocol upgrade. So maybe we can skip down to integrations. I think there's a few topics here that people would be keen to hear more about, and there are some updates on the various points from OP tokens to the Oracle, so maybe we can run through them.
Sweet. We can jump to the juicy things then. Let's start with the Optimism grant. So those following along, we did get an Optimism token grant quite a while ago. However, it has been held up due to some accountability things. I believe the team sent a proposal to Optimism, and I'm curious, how is that proposal going? Maybe you can give us some background on what this proposal entails.
Yep. So the issue basically was that they, as part of their kind of compliance regime, they needed to KYC the participants of the recipients of the funds, and Rocket Pool, the company, couldn't really do it because it's not really us that are receiving the funds; it's the DAO. So we want to make sure that it's reflected. That's reflected. So what we've actually managed to do is that we've gone around in circles a little bit, but we managed to get the 3 of the ODL members to agree to kind of KYC, and so there'll be four members in total. So there'll be 3 ODL members and us and Rocket Pool on the multi-sig. So we will KYC with Optimism's kind of legal team, and then they'll be able to send the funds to there. Now, whether we'll be able to kind of then send it to the IMC or whether we will have to do it from that point, I just need to double check whether we have to actually action stuff from that multi-sig. I need to double check because unfortunately I think we might be under the same issues. We might have the same issues as Optimism in the sense that we need to make sure that anyway, we just need to make sure there's some legal stuff carried off there. But either way, we'll be able to take receipt of those OP funds and start using them to incentivize optimism liquidity.
Sweet. Whether it is from the IMC multi-sig or a separate multi-sig, shouldn't hopefully in the end matter much, given that these tokens are pretty much already earmarked how they're going to be used. So great to know that progress is, however, being made, and that we have a successful KYC committee proposal being sent forward. Really, that means, in my opinion, that sounds like things are going to be happening very soon. And given that rETH is currently trading at premium, essentially, or very, very tiny premium, this should just be sort of like icing on a very elegant cake. I remember back during the curve pool incentives when Tetranode accidentally set it to max power right at the get-go instead of the initially planned 35%. There was a discussion about it where we called it throwing gasoline on a forest fire. These op tokens could be pushing towards that territory.
Yeah, and obviously the goal of the OP grant that we had was to incentivize that liquidity on optimism, and so and obviously the more liquidity we have on optimism, the more integrations are possible as well on optimism. We already kind of have. Oh, actually, that's the other thing we'll talk about in a minute, but. We already have kind of the rETH price being oracled to optimism at the moment, and the ODAO are currently doing that, and so it's very likely that we'll be able to spark off more integrations on optimism and get some real kind of utility on optimism, which would be fantastic.
This double sort of flywheel effect is going to draw a lot of demand, so hopefully our mini pool capacity is able to keep up. However, with Marco around and Patricio, seems like there's a never-ending capacity. The deposit pool will always be open. But as you mentioned, the rETH price is now, or should be, available on Optimism, given the Chainlink integration that's has an ongoing discussion. I'm curious how the discussion has been progressing with Arbitrum as well. I believe that, Ray, I'm not sure how much you can say about that.
So, no, I can definitely say that. I've just realised that I need to reply to them about that. So essentially, the price being oracled to Optimism is actually being done by the ODAO and not Chainlink. So it's already on Optimism at the moment. Now, how we want to go to Arbitrum, though, so we did that before the discussion with Chainlink really kicked off in terms of the calculated feed, and also because we wanted to get the balancer pool set up kind of on Optimism. Now that we're talking to Chainlink, so Chainlink have said that I think they're still doing some kind of analysis on demand for the feed, but I don't think that's going to be a huge issue. But what they're looking to do is to build us a calculated feed, which essentially means that it will be based on the rETH exchange rate from the Rocket Pool contracts, or the Rocket Pool rETH contract. And so that calculated feed, you'll be able to use that on mainnet, and it'll be a Chainlink feed. And we're talking to them to also do one on Arbitrum as well. In fact, on Arbitrum, I think what we're aiming for is probably 2 feeds, like a custom feed and another feed. Because what they want to do with the calculated feed is, also the feed generally from Chainlink, is that it'll start out being a calculated feed, but they will then incorporate market data as our kind of volumes improve, and the volumes have improved already. So hopefully that we're starting to activate that market data. And obviously with the calculated exchange rate plus the market data, that becomes a much more robust feed. And so that's fantastic. And so that's what they're aiming to kind of do in the transition to incorporating more and more market data as our volume goes up. But on Arbitrum, we're talking to them about maybe having both feeds, having like a true exchange rate feed and like a calculated plus market data feed. Mainly because of like the balance of pool. The balance of pool should probably have the calculated feed rather than the plus the market feed. So that's what we're just working through at the moment about whether we need two feeds or whether we need one feed and that sort of thing.
That's right. Certain protocols don't actually want to know what the market rate or DEX rate is. They actually want specifically what the native asset value rate is that the smart contracts would report. And so having both feeds definitely would be a plus. And one of the main benefits of having Chainlink take over this is that it's one less duty for the Oracle DAO to have. There's a discussion I and Nashua and Valdorf had, I believe, in governance on this topic if you want to read more about it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And selfishly, from a resourcing perspective, it means that we can focus on Atlas and not have to worry about having to produce the feed for Arbitrum as well. Obviously, we've got a pattern that we can use, but it still would take time to kind of develop that if we had to do it ourselves. So leaning on Chainlink, who are, they do this every day, all day. So leaning on Chainlink would be a much better solution.
Speaking on leaning on and dependencies, Rocket Pool is still being a bit dependent on the MakerDAO governance process to get rETH listed. So this has been an ongoing multi-year-long process at this point. However, the light at the end of the tunnel is still shining. They just updated their risk evaluation for rETH based on modern, or sort of recent market data, as well as the post-merge Redstone contract implementation. And largely the changes are not sort of important for the onboarding process, but more so for the people looking at liquidations, as it's just getting rETH up to date with Steve and other LSD tokens. So our liquidity has improved. Slippage for rETH has dropped pretty substantially since the last look at rETH. So lots of good things in that evaluation. However, still a 5 million debt ceiling is projected. And a final executive vote for essentially the live launching of the vault will be in mid-October.
Yeah, it was actually kind of good to see that report come out to make because you can kind of sit back and they're a bit of a black box and you can't really see what's going on. And it was actually good to see that report drop because clearly things are progressing therein. So yeah, it's good to kind of see that.
That's right. They haven't forgotten about us. So Olympus DAO has posted a fairly substantial proposal in a thread in governance called Olympus, sort of describing their next generation of Ohm, the token, and how they want rETH to be a part of it. And so it's a fairly substantial and intense outline. It redesigns the Ohm tokenomics to be less inflationary and hopefully more resistant towards long-term downward inflationary pressures. However, they still want to use it as an intermediary asset of exchange type asset with one-sided deposits that are somewhat reminiscent of the Bancor system. So treated with some degree of skepticism, but it is a good proposal, and Ohm has quite a substantial treasury to create a good product. They are soliciting feedback on the proposal, so definitely give it a read if you can.
It's funny because like for rETH, like one-sided deposits for liquidity, would be fantastic because you don't need to. There's no opportunity cost between. So currently, if you're LP, you've got to take both sides of the market, obviously, and with one-sided, obviously, you wouldn't. But we've taken two sides. It means half your collateral is not as productive as it could be. So it's kind of like one-sided liquidity is one of those holy grails that's similar to an algorithmic stable. It's good. Like it's similar to an algorithmic stable coin.
Yeah.
in the sense that it's it would be so capital efficient, but
right.
getting it right is really difficult.
The holy grail of I've solved impermanent loss.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah.
Hopefully they do manage to pull it off, but we'll see. There is apparently also an ongoing discovery chat with Beefy Finance, who, for the unfamiliar, they've mainly run auto compounders on vaults, sort of like Yearn, but with lower fees. And on mainnet, it would be awesome to get an Aura, a compounder for the Aura Vault, which I don't believe exists yet. So I'm not sure who has been ongoing with the Beefy team.
So I had a quick chat with them. We didn't get into absolute specifics, but I need to kind of follow up with them on where we want to take it. But it seems positive. I think they were mentioning rolling it out to mainnet as well. So, but I just need to check up on kind of where we are with them.
Great. There's a few bonus integrations that are not on this Biweekly that I'll throw in now. The first of which is Loopring is now live with trading for rETH, and I believe there's already some tens of thousands of USD worth of liquidity there. Loopring also is going to be launching an incentive program for their platform, which is going to be co-incentivized by the IMC. This is one of our first co-incentive programs. It is going to be a fairly small one. However, Loopring's DEX is pretty small as is, but it is pretty cool that that's sort of another chain that rETH will be available on. Trading is now live.
Actually, I was going to speak to you, Jasper, about... So I had a chat with Swivel, and so Swivel are like a interest rate swap or fixed income sort of product, DeFi product, and I was going to have a chat to you. Have we spoken to kind of an Element or Notional or sort of someone like that in terms of fixed income sort of products?
So back in the day, there was I had a conversation with Element. This was prior to IMC and a sort of more recent robust liquidity. Back then, they sort of saw that as an issue. However, now there was another fixed income product people that wanted, as I started talking to, that does junior and senior tranches.
Was that Barnyard? No, Barn.
Idle. It was Idle.
Oh, it's Idle. Okay, all right, cool.
Yeah. But no, I haven't gone back to Element or Notional since we've increased our liquidity. Definitely worth going to, though. Yeah.
Element's TVL has dropped off like an absolute rock. I didn't know whether did they have like a security issue or anything.
So I was looking into Idle because they had the same thing, that their TVL also fell off a cliff, and I'm just not sure if the splitting into a fixed income has enough demand yet, because a lot of the TVL on Idle was sort of just incentivized by Lido.
Right. Okay. All right. Gotcha. Yeah.
So it did not seem sticky at all.
Right.
And
okay.
they incentivized the more risky senior tranches, which the risk obviously was worth it, but at the end of the day, it was just seems like a worse form of liquidity farming if there's no natural product market fit. But it's worth exploring.
Yeah.
The other integration that's currently being explored is with KakiDAO. So they produce the My stablecoin, which is most prevalent on Polygon, but has recently launched on Ethereum. And they are very interested in onboarding rETH. However, they are currently still talking to various IMC committee members as they draft out their final proposal. This would be pretty awesome, as this would be the first stablecoin that would accept rETH as collateral. Yep. So My Finance, hopefully that would be pretty cool.